Hi, I'm Robin Buckingham, farm planner for the Puyallup and White River watersheds with Pierce Conservation District. Today we're going to talk about heavy use areas. If you have any questions about the information in the video or would like some help planning a heavy use area on your farm, reach out anytime. So heavy use areas are also called turnouts, runs, sacrifice areas. There's a lot of different names for the same piece of farm infrastructure. At Pierce Conservation District, we tend to call them heavy use areas. Regardless of what you call them, it's typically an area that's covered with gravel or another surfacing material, or it could be as simple as a piece of designated pasture. The purpose of a heavy use area is to provide stable footing for livestock during times that they can't be out on pasture. Western Washington, we're lucky to get lots of rainfall, around 30 inches in 6 months, depending on where you're at. However, that can make managing livestock and pastures pretty tricky. If you let animals out on wet pastures, you run the risk of compacting the soil and damaging the forage's productive capacity. Forages also need a rest at the end of dry summer months when limited moisture limits their regrowth. Overgrazing at this point in the season can severely impact productivity for seasons to come. These areas also allow us to manage livestock wastes better as well. Soil, bedding, manure, and hay, when mixed with water, can become mud. This is unsightly, bad for animal health, and can negatively impact our shared natural resources. If you're considering developing a heavy use area on your property, there's some things you'll want to plan out. The first is location. Where you site the facility is going to determine the materials you use, potential permitting needed, as well as your daily workflow of chores. Pick a site that's flat or gently sloping. 1% slope is ideal, and you really want it to slope away from any barns or other infrastructures, as that can cause water management issues. Make sure that you abide by all setbacks of wetland areas, fish and wildlife habitat, and other critical areas as designated by your permitting authority. And remember that sturdy and safe fencing is extremely important. After you've chosen a site for your heavy use area, you'll want to think about the amount of space that you're going to dedicate to it. Animal health and comfort is going to play a big role in that, as well as the amount of productive land that you want to give it up to accommodate the heavy use area. A good rule of thumb for planning out a space for heavy use area is to size it as small as practical for the livestock that you have, while maintaining, of course, their comfort and health. That's going to allow you to both limit costs of installation, limit the area that you have to manage and maintain, and limit your daily chore workflow area. After you've chosen a site and the size for your heavy use area, you want to consider the materials that you're going to use. This will vary somewhat by livestock. Horses, for instance, can do well on gravel such as 5/8-, while cattle will typically need concrete and organic bedding to deal with their impact and waste. You also want to consider what's underneath your top course. So on top of, or below rather, the gravel and base course that you're going to put down, you'll want to have some membrane or barrier between the underlying soil and the material that you put there. Typically this is geotextile fabric. It's a woven plastic fabric. You could also use products such as hoof grid or light hoof or other plastic paving grids. These are more expensive, but they work better in sloped areas and can help stabilize aggregate if need be. After you've installed the materials on your chosen site, you may think the work is over. Really at this point it's just beginning. Proper operation and maintenance of your heavy use area is going to be critical to maintain the benefits of the site. This includes things such as picking manure, hopefully daily, but as frequently as you can to avoid it from being ground into whatever aggregate surfacing that you have. This will reduce the permeability of that aggregate and could potentially lead to mud problems again. Other operation and maintenance considerations include regrading the surface of the material to allow for better footing and runoff, and also adding additional material that may get picked up with the manure when it's being picked. One thing I will say about the light hoof and hoof grid systems, they can make regrading a little bit more tricky, so consider your operation and maintenance flow in the planning process of your heavy use area. Other areas that can benefit from heavy use area protection include gates and walkways and other high traffic areas where mud could potentially develop.